Israel says 40% of Iran's missile launchers are still intact, but promises more surprises. If only they had a nuke. None of this would have happened if they had a nuke. Ukraine too? Yeah, if Ukraine had nukes, Russia wouldn't have invaded. If Iran had nukes, we wouldn't be doing this. Do you think we'll actually see a ground invasion? There's a reasonable chance. It really depends on what like the numbers come out to. How much of the political momentum in the White House right now is being driven by Hegseth and his associated Christian evangelicals. Because if that is the main drive, if that really is the main influence on why we're doing this, you know, Christian Zionism, then yeah, there might be boots on the ground. U.S. asked Ukraine to help fight Iranian drones. Yeah, because we don't produce anything anymore. Is it only going to be 4 to 5 weeks because we're going to run out of ammo? I mean, hey, man, the Pentagon said that we should prepare for conflicts to extend to September. It's not that surprising we're losing. Our military was never built to be competent. Don't be disillusioned. Forget not that we live in the shadow of the old world, okay? You are a Holy Roman Empire local duke who has marshaled an army of 30 men on ragged, flea-bitten donkeys, and you are imagining the Roman emperors had access to about the same amount of manpower. The United States in the Gulf War disassembled Iraq so effectively that it basically said, like, that was maybe the most one-sided curb stomp between two reasonably powerful forces in human history. The extent to which we dismantled them is basically unprecedented. It's insane how effective we were. Our military used to be effective, but in between now and then, we live in a fallen state. No, and Iraq was huge. Yeah, fourth biggest military in the world at the time. Really, the shift is between the Gulf War and the Iraq War, because the difference between them kind of marked what happened to the United States. You know, the Gulf War was, for better or for worse, done for identifiable empirical reasons, Iraq's invasion of Kuwait, and it was well coordinated and planned by military technocrats. Like, our Gulf War invasion was led, the decision making was done by people whose job it is to win wars. Meanwhile, a decade later, with Iraq, you have a total reversal. The decision to go into Iraq and the broader strategic goals were done by political forces, not military forces. It was Bush and the people around him and the military and the oil contractors around him, Halliburton and so on and so forth, that were making the big strategic calls on what they wanted to do and how they wanted to do it. And as a consequence, it was a meandering mess where we achieved nothing but killed lots of innocent people. It was just wretched, you know? And that's, I mean, it's like private equity. The U.S. military got sold out to it too. Everything after that has only been a worsening of that tendency, you know? We have given up on military effectiveness for the same reason that we have given up on having well-priced cafes on the streets of our cities' downtowns. It all fits into the same set of patterns. It's the same goddamn thing. H.W. Bush was our last most competent president, and he was insanely fucking evil. It should be noted. It's the rot. It's the rot. It's the rot. It's the capital rot. The same people who think that civilization can survive every downtown business closing and people having to commute 2 hours to work because the only people who can afford to live in the city are like wealthy fucks who don't actually work the local shops. Those are the same people who think that the US military can function even though we have no domestic factories producing ammunition. It's the same people from top to bottom at every level. Everything being hollowed out, scraped like fucking... I don't know. You're gutting the inside of a gourd, leaving an empty shell. Iranian official warns Americans against a ground invasion. It's crazy how fast it all rotted after the Soviets fell. Yeah, the Soviets falling, that was basically like the, you know, runner's starting gun being fired on, we have no global competition, we won, we can do whatever we want. You know, neoliberalism really kicked off after the Cold War ended because then it's, well, we are no longer beholden to some kind of externally enforced standard of competence. There's no longer anyone out there capable of swooping in to take advantage of our weakness. We won, and the world is ours. And now, like, 1% of Americans own like fucking 90% of the country's assets. Don't forget the global south. No, no, no. We were already hollowing out the global south, but that was the difference. During the 1950s, 60s, whatever, we believed in building up our country and hollowing out the rest of the world because you needed to maintain a strong domestic base. But now that capital is completely international, unbeholden to, the conflicts born of the Cold War, you don't need to keep your own country strong anymore. Do you think Netflix gives a fuck whether or not America can replenish its ammunition supplies? Do you think that banks that do business all around the world or OpenAI give a shit? Nobody cares anymore. These transnational elites are completely disconnected from national loyalty, so they don't feel a need to reinvest in their communities. So they get infinite money, and we all have to argue over whether or not they would run off to the Cayman Islands if we tax them for a fraction of it. Or Tel Aviv. What about reindustrialization? It's not happening. We will never reindustrialize, at least not with this economic system. There's no point. Tendency for the rate of profits to fall. Why would corporations do that? Why would corporations make less money? They make more money jerking off and, I don't know, doing stock buybacks. Why the fuck would they invest in domestic manufacturing? You make more money failing as a corporation? Dude, literally. I can't fucking believe Ukraine is helping us out here. Did you see the private plane tracker of all the flights leaving Tel Aviv the moment Iran was bombed? Yeah, Netanyahu left too. Of course he did, right? Vosh is about to go black pill. It's not a black pill. It's just at the end of the day, and this is a very like paleo Marxist perspective, right? It's not novel. I'm not inventing it. If anything, I'm just going back to basics. At the end of the day, literally everything that is happening right now is because the capitalists got high on their own supply after the end of the Cold War. They realized nothing could stop them. And after the end of the Cold War, we have seen a remarkable increase in the financialization of the global economy. Basically every country. More and more of the economy has shifted from regular, normal, human day-to-day transactions, which have existed for thousands of years since the beginning of civilization. People have traded. Grug has traded lion pelt for sharp rock. This is the bedrock of human interpersonal commerce. More and more money has been shifted from that economy into speculation, into assets, into the stock market, whatever you prefer. Real estate to an extent, right, is also a speculative asset. At least it's certainly traded that way. Even if for the most part, it's just people holding on to their own. That's how it's treated. And as a consequence, we don't build anything, or the stuff that gets built is built for pennies on the dollar in foreign factories, but we don't produce anything and we don't reinvest in our communities, and the money gets siphoned up and up and up and up and up. And that's why our military is shit, and why our politics is shit, and why everyone's insane, because our political elites are forced to capitulate to these interests because they would lose if they didn't. God, did you guys see that OpenAI article from earlier this morning? That guy who was like, it was like an insider's look into one of the most aggressive lobbyists for OpenAI. And they talked about how one of his strategies was to threaten to kill the families of people who weren't favorable to like AI deregulation or something like that. The Israeli? I don't know if he's Israeli, but he was evil, so I'll assume that he's Israeli. Let me check. Hold on one second. OpenAI lobbyist article. And tools, anytime past 24 hours. No, I don't see it. Might be older than 24 hours. OpenAI is spiritually Israeli for sure. Lawrence Summers was on the board of OpenAI, so it makes sense. Sam Altman is a Zionist. They're all, yeah, and so are the people who run Palantir. They're all Zionists. Of course they are. Again, Zionism isn't about Judaism. It has basically nothing, like saying, how do I put this? I'm trying to think of believing that Zionism is about Judaism is as naive as believing that the arms companies that produce and sell weapons to various ethnic groups in like Middle Africa are concerned with the ethnic supremacy of the groups they sell to. Like when gun trafficking rings hand firearms off to one of innumerable local ethnic or religious groups, that they're really rooting for those guys as opposed to just like profiting from the sentiment, you know? I'm just hoping there's a point in my lifetime where an alliance of good occupies and denazifies Israel. That would be nice, but like right now, most of the West is Zionist. Like even European leadership refuses to stand up to it, right? MERS in Germany is like the big one, but by and large, the EU is not like the people, for the most part, are anti-Israel. God bless them. But the leadership in Europe, you can be anti-Israel all you want as like a regular citizen of the EU, but then once you get a little bit of power, you get a bit of clout. The powers that be remind you what's what and who's in charge. Thank you. And capital's in charge, motherfucker. Capital's in charge. It always has been. And capital really, really wants permanent war in the Middle East. Israel being leader of the Western world sucks. Yeah. French President Macron has agreed to offer armored transport vehicles and operational support to the Lebanese army as he calls on Israel not to expand the war to Lebanon. That's nice. Which is absolutely insane for EU capital. The war with Iran at this moment is the worst thing that can happen for us. Right, but again, keep in mind that the okay, Epstein was rich, right? And Trump is rich. Remember how there was an email? Who was Epstein talking with in that email? Epstein was agreeing with somebody else that the best strategy for gaining wealth and power in the near future was global isolationism. That the world should be destabilized, countries should get more revanchist, more xenophobic, and turn inward, and that as the world grows more chaotic, prices go down, and then you buy up everything. You remember that? He basically laid the ball game out there. It's the same reason that Trump has said he wants to lower the value of U.S. currency. He just straightforwardly said, like, just investing is a Rubes game. Destabilize the world, drive down the price of assets in contested areas, and then scoop them up. It's exactly what happened after 2008, you know? The economy crashed, but did the rich get any less rich? No. It was Epstein to Mandelson in the UK. He was saying Brexit will give them so much opportunity for profit. I don't know if it was that one. Um, yeah, it happened with 2020 as well. Anyway, just because the European Union doesn't directly benefit from this war with Iran, the elites in the EU, the elites everywhere, benefit from global instability. He talked about Brexit as a return to tribalism. Is this the one where he explicitly said you want to buy up the world when things are cheap? Oh, yeah. Okay, this is it. Yes, this is it. This is the game plan right here with Mr. Teal. Epstein appears to have written an email to Mr. Teal just 3 days after Britain voted to leave the EU, saying, Brexit just the beginning. The venture capitalist appears to respond, of what? To which Epstein says, return to tribalism, counter to globalization, amazing new alliances. He added, you and I both agreed zero interest rates were too high. So again, the main way companies make money these days is through low interest rates, facilitating debt accumulation, then investment, then leveraging. And as I said in your office, finding things on their way to collapse was much easier than finding the next bargain. Or in other words, we're making money hand over fist, but it's not fast enough. And I'm tired of waiting for the next bargain, the next economic opportunity to take advantage of. The best thing we can do is foster right-wing tribalistic sentiment so that companies and countries fall apart, dissolve, break apart, and in the crisis that emerges, you just swoop up everything. It happened after the Great Depression. It happened after the oil crashes. It happened after 2008. It happened after 2020. Every time there is an economic collapse, the previous wealthiest people scoop up all of the dead and dying businesses, they accumulate and they assimilate, and then there are fewer people on top next time you check. There used to be 1,000 American banks, now there's 5. There used to be 1,000 media companies and newspapers, now there's 5. There used to be 1,000 arms procurement companies. There used to be 1,000 everything, now there's 5. There are 5 companies remaining. That's the whole point. Yep, happened after the USSR fell, happened with the Russian oligarchs. You take advantage of a crisis and you consolidate. This is what is happening right now in Iran. So when you say, well, nobody benefits from this, just keep in mind, global instability is the benefit. So Paramount buying Warner Brothers is also part of this? Yes. Yeah, 100%. How do you think a $11 billion company is able to leverage enough capital to buy a company worth like $100 billion? I know Larry Ellison's putting up a lot of his own money and a lot of debts being put forward by like the Saudis and so on, but it's not about making money immediately. It's about consolidation. US billionaire graph since 1990. Oh, right. There's much more stark data out there than this, by the way. It goes way further than this. Is the solution to get an FDR-like candidate from the negative sentiment? Well, the problem is that FDR is part of the reason we are where we are right now, People at the time were too stupid to see it, but he saved capitalism from itself. FDR emerged because at the time they were experiencing not necessarily the same economic conditions, but more like a crisis of capital as we are now, where there's a very obvious, not just obvious inequality, but like a socially ruinous level of inequality. It's where we are right now, too, to a different extent. And he put rules in order that kept the capital class from eating themselves alive. But inevitably, it fell apart. It was always going to. You have to do something about the capital class. Jacob Rees-Mogg, one of the most pro-Brexit politicians in the country, is famous for the fact that his dad wrote a book laying out exactly the plan you're describing. That's cool. That's neat. William Rees-Mogg wrote the prophetic The Sovereign Individual and had views on capitalism and chaos that have fascinating links to his son's enthusiasm for Brexit. Yeah. They've been pretty open about what they want for a long time now. Dyslexia lol. Many such cases. Vosh, you're correct here, of course, but I will say it's hard to have any hope for a decent future. Don't be a beta. Listen, okay? Everybody wants to rule the world, but it's really, really hard. All right? And I don't think anyone's found the formula yet. We're dealing with a crisis in capital. We're dealing with a sort of like a clash between our expectations of what can be and what actually is. And it's bad. It's very bad. But that doesn't mean things are over. They're not capable of ending the world. There is no rapture. And I don't think they're going to pull out the nukes either. What we need to do is position ourselves well and to understand the depth of this problem. Earlier in the stream, I said something that was a little bit hyperbolic because I thought it was funny, that even the most moderate Zionist is more consequentially harmful to the world than somebody like Nick Fuentes. I do think there's some truth to that. I don't think it's entirely true. But the reason I don't think it's entirely true is because that Nick Fuentes has probably motivated more people to vote for Zionist candidates than the average moderate Democrat has. At the end of the day, that is the whirlpool, right? That is like the big pit at the bottom. I think that we need to reconcile with the fact that we are not getting out of this until something is done. It's not enough to say that Israel is conducting a genocide. It's not enough to say that the war in Iran is unjustifiable or insane or ruinous or bloodthirsty or whatever. The main topic of conversation among American politicians needs to be stopping Israel. And then we need a full investigation of the financial links between Israel and American politicians, not because I think Israel has controlled our politicians, but because I think to a large extent, it's two puppets and two puppeteers, right? We've gone into this arm in arm. I want to understand the financial ties between the Christian Zionists in America who are unironically advocating for doomsday and the Jewish supremacists in Israel who are willing to do their bidding as long as they get greater Israel. I want to see how these relationships stack up, And if you can't do that, I mean, what exactly do we do then after the conflict with Iran ends? Just wait for Israel to gun for another one? Wait for the next season when evangelical Christians take power in the White House? When is enough enough? We need to get to the root of this problem. Yeah, it's capital? Yeah, it's capital. It's capital. Of course it's capital. I'm a fucking Socialist, of course, I know it's very unoriginal. Oh, what is he going to say? What is he going to say next? It's capital. It's, of course, it's capital. It's always been capital. Serious question: how do we stop the influence of evangelical Zionism in America without actions that I can't say on stream? We all need to get more militantly atheist. Also, you guys should note this recent far right tendency towards cringy, like fake tradcath bullshit is a psyop. The powers that be understand that the best way of reinforcing the desires of the Epsteinite elite is to keep people stupid and religiously zealous. So they have been making it cool to be a fake tradcath or whatever. Of course, American traditional Catholic converts are actually just Protestants, like J.D. Vance, you know. They're only Catholic in the sense that they like, I don't know, AI Crusader images or they like the lolicon Crusader girls or whatever. It's not really a reflection of their beliefs. They have nothing in common with actual Catholics. So they're really just Protestants. It is an effort to re-mainstream religious zealotry in the right wing. We need to make being religious deeply, deeply uncool, and not just the fake tradcaths, but like just in general. We need to move past this, guys. I'm sorry. We can't keep doing this. We can't keep doing this.